Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so glad you could join us today for our webinar, Do More with Less, AP Strategies for Thriving in Uncertain Times. I'm Haley. I'm part of the marketing team here at MHC, and I'll be facilitating today's discussion. Our speaker today is Mark Brousseau, who I will introduce shortly. But first, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and you all will receive a follow-up email with the link to the recording on our website. All participants have been muted to prevent background noise, so please type in any questions you have into the Q&A section and someone will be in touch with you following the webinar. There will be a post-webinar survey that will appear when the webinar ends, so please use this to let us know how we're doing and to request any additional information so an MHC resource can follow up with you. Our speaker for today is Mark Brousseau, president of Brousseau and Associates. Over the past 30 years, he's established himself as a thought leader in the world of accounts payable, accounts receivable, and document automation. So with that, let's hear from Mark about AP strategies for thriving in uncertain times.
Thank you so much, Haley, and thank you all for joining us today. If your organization is like most others, there's good chance that you're being asked to do more with less. Over the past couple quarters, we've seen some pretty wild swings in the markets, some questions about what might happen with interest rates, some unpredictable global supply chains, and even some talk about the possibility of an economic slowdown. Put it all together, and well, senior business leaders are nervous. They're not sure what the future might bring. And so they're looking for ways to rein in expenses, to trim any fat, and to make sure their organization is operating as efficiently as possible. And one place where we can oftentimes find improvements is in our accounts payable function. And that's what we're going to discuss today. We'll talk about the hidden costs of manual and even semi automated accounts payable processes. We'll show you how AP can not only help the organization reduce costs, but become a strategic driver of growth and success. We'll share with you some strategies for automating your accounts payable function and elevating your role as a department and as a business leader. And finally, we're going to arm you with an action plan for putting some of the ideas that we give to you today into practice in your organization. But before we do any of that, well, we wanted to start with a poll question, which is now displayed on your screen. We want to know, what is the biggest challenge your accounts payable team is facing right now? What is the biggest challenge your accounts payable team is facing right now? Is it manual, time consuming processes? Is it inadequate visibility? Is it rising workload with less staff? Is it high risk of payment fraud? Or is it something else? Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen, and we'll discuss the results in just a moment. Today, AP leaders have a lot on their plates, and it's never been an easy function, but now, well, now we have a lot of new expectations as AP leaders, and that's really at the heart of this poll question. So, Haley, what do you say we see how our attendees responded to our poll question? We asked you all, what is the biggest challenge your AP team is facing right now? For 62% of you, you said manual time consuming processes. No surprise there. 15% of you identified rising workload with less staff. Interesting. If you put this together with manual time consuming processes, that I guess we could argue they're almost kissing cousins. 8 out of 10 of our attendees, it seems, are facing challenges associated with inefficient or ineffective processes. 8% of you identified inadequate visibility. Another 8% of you said payment fraud is too high a risk. Another 8% of you said, well, it's something else. No matter what it is that your organization is challenged with, today AP can become a lever for your organization's success. The reality is pressure on AP departments is building. Today, economic uncertainty is pushing finance to find ways to reduce costs and to mitigate risks, whether they're operational or from a fraud or compliance standpoint. And it's falling on the shoulders of AP in many cases to help finance leadership, the CFO, the controller, maybe a finance director, achieve those objectives. Today, 80% of all CFOs say that they have taken on new responsibilities, most of them of a strategic basis. Make no mistake, folks, AP is expected to help your CFO achieve those objectives. The problem for many AP departments is that in many cases, we're so burdened with outdated manual workflows that we simply don't have any free time to be able to focus on the strategic tasks that will help move the business forward, no matter the economic situation. Think about this. In a recent study by the Institute of Finance and Management, they found that 84% of the typical accounts payable practitioner's day is wasted on manual repetitive tasks. Things like keying invoice data, shuffling paper and emails, fixing errors and mistakes, and responding to endless phone calls and emails from suppliers and stakeholders on where things stand in the process. 84%. And yet, if you walk down the hall and you asked your CFO what they want your AP team focused on, well, they'd probably say the exact opposite. 84% on strategic activities and only 16% of the day on those manual repetitive tasks. Just how bad are those manual repetitive tasks? Well, think about this for a second. Today, the typical AP department manager spends more time on transaction processing each day than on managerial tasks like staff development. And so, what's the result of all of this, all of these manual repetitive tasks? Well, in many cases, it's missed opportunities. It's high risk of compliance issues and payment fraud. And it's also the risk of burning our staffs out. Today, 22% of all AP practitioners are either looking for a job or planning to do so within the next 6 months. 22% of all AP staff. You might be one of them. But what's really telling about those stats is that a majority of those AP practitioners who are either looking for a job or planning to look for a job, they say they wouldn't consider working for an employer who had a lower level of automation than their current employer. That is something to really think about. All this manual work really has a big impact on our departments. In many cases, well, it just consumes our staff time. Today, AP teams are working longer hours in many cases. In fact, 25% of all AP practitioners say they're working an additional 2 hours per day. Think about that for a moment. Another 2 hours per day, and assuming you're already working 8 hours, where does the time go? What's more, manual tasks drive up the cost of AP processing. I'm not sure if you track your average cost to process a single invoice submitted by a supplier, but if you don't, it might be eye-opening. Now, there's lots of ways to calculate this figure, and the simplest way is to factor in your number of invoices and compare it to the total amount of your salaries and compensation for and benefits for your team. Of course, you could also factor in things like, office space and utilities and even parking lot expenses. But no matter how you calculate it, the number could be very eye-popping. In fact, today, it costs about $8 and change to process a single invoice. In many cases, though, organizations are spending much, much more. In fact, about 18% of all AP departments spend $15 or more to process just one invoice. I was recently at a conference and a large government agency, they might have something to do with putting people in outer space. They told me it costs more than $25 to process a single invoice. And in many ways, they're already largely automated. Well, all this manual work only gets worse when you get bigger. So if you're a small or mid-sized company and you're saying, man, I know it's not good, but we can make do. The reality is as the business grows, your complexity grows, your labor costs go up. And the return on investment, you see, keeps going down. What's more is when that volume of work goes up, errors inevitably go up with it. Manual data entry has got to be one of the most burdensome things about an AP department these days. One single typo or transposed number creates some huge downstream issues in terms of exceptions. But not only that, if they aren't caught, now it can delay our financial close and maybe even result in some embarrassment for us or our boss. What's more, we have a lot of exceptions already to begin with in AP departments without even factoring typos and transposed numbers. Today, about 16% of all invoices show up with some sort of an exception. Things like a missing PO number, incorrect quantity or incorrect amount, or maybe some other missing information that holds things up. The problem is that tracking down that information turns into a big problem for most AP departments, particularly if you're operating in a manual environment. Think about this. About one quarter of all invoices result in at least 6 phone calls or emails between internal and external stakeholders trying to track things down. 6. And what often happens is that in many of those cases, it takes a week or more to resolve just one exception. All the while, well, the clock is ticking. Now you're at risk of paying a late payment penalty, missing out on an early payment discount. Your supplier's on the phone with you, wondering where things are. Maybe they're starting to get hot under the collar. Maybe you're not getting the goods and services you need. It's exhausting just thinking about it. And us in AP, we're the ones left holding the bag. What's more is these errors over time really do damage our supplier relationships. Suppliers start to wonder about us. Is this a business I really want to do work with? We also find that manual and repetitive tasks really create an environment where we feel like we're flying blind. In many cases, key information isn't captured. The information that is captured isn't right. It's not complete. Information isn't well organized. It's not timely. And the net result of all of this is that the people who need to make decisions don't have all the information they need in order to make a accurate one. And so we're in an environment where we're always reactive. Take what happened in the past quarter with the shifting global trade policies, right? Markets were fluctuating wildly, almost by the day, by the hour. And a lot of businesses were simply caught flat footed. How could that be? You'd say, this is a big company. How in the world could we be so reactive? Well, we simply don't have the access to the data we need to be able to know where our cash flows are, who we're spending money with, and what we're spending it on. And we got to go find all that. What's more, our cash forecasts go completely out the window in tumultuous times like this. If only we had a way to capture all of that data about cash flows at the front end as soon as an invoice showed up. Poor visibility also makes it harder to be able to tell when a fraudulent transaction has arrived at our doorstep. And finally, what you find is that all of these manual repetitive tasks have a big impact on our teams. If it feels like your staff's morale is lower these days, you're not imagining teams. Today's staff spend lots and lots of time on low value, repetitive tasks that simply suck the life out of them. What we also find is folks who went to college and got finance degrees often find that they're left doing 10 key operations. And so they become frustrated, especially when the work piles up. And the strategic activities, the things like data analysis, the stuff that really gets us excited, the things we want to do, well, that always seems to get pushed to the back burner. And so what happens? Well, turnover is high. When I entered the AP industry, one of the first observations I had was I was struck by how many departments had people who had been with the company for 10, 15, 20 years or more. And in many cases, it wasn't just one or two people on the team, it was all of them. Nobody left AP. Now, I'm not here to say if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the reality is we just didn't have turnover. And that all started to change during the pandemic. And so now our departments have seen lots of turnover. In fact, today, about one quarter of all AP practitioners who are approaching retirement age say that they are looking at retiring early. This brain drain that we're facing in AP is going to have big impact on our productivity, our accuracy, and our morale, our ability to run our department. And that brings us to our second poll question, which is now displayed on your screen. This time we want to know, how would you describe your current level of AP automation? How would you describe your current level of AP automation? Are you fully automated? You've deployed technology and you have no manual AP tasks? Are you largely automated? You've deployed some technology, but you still have a few manual AP tasks. Are you partially automated? You deployed some technology, but you still have a lot of manual tasks? Or are you a manual, paper pushing machine? Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen, and we'll discuss the results in just a moment. Yeah, so how automated are departments? Well, statistics tell us that only about 9% of all AP departments are what we'd call fully automated, electronic touch-free processing. I'm from Philadelphia. I dream of the day when the Eagles win another Super Bowl. AP leaders, you all dream of the day when invoices can flow through your department electronically without anyone having to touch a finger. So, Haley, let's see just how close our attendees are to achieving nirvana. It looks like MHC has some work to do here. 77% of our attendees said they're partially automated. They've deployed some AP technology, but they still have a lot of manual tasks. 23% of our attendees say they're largely automated. They've deployed technology, they still have a few manual tasks. No matter where you are on your AP automation journey, one of the biggest pieces of advice I'd give to you is to never lose sight of the goal, and that is to achieve full automation. The problem is that partial automation simply isn't good enough anymore in AP. The pressures to reduce costs are too high. The implications of errors are too high. The risk of fraud and compliance issues are just too onerous. We've got to find ways to achieve full automation. And one of the biggest reasons to do that is because your business is counting on you to do it. You see, back in the day, AP was the quintessential back office function, a tactical function, a drain on company resources, a cost of doing business. You are the people in the basement with the hand-me-down office furniture and the coffee pot that didn't work so good. The only time people called AP was when things went wrong. That started to change though. Businesses recognize that if only they could unlock all that data in AP, they could turn it into a strategic lever, right? And so we've got to find ways to do that. And it all starts with that data that you're sitting on. All that information that resides on those invoices that you receive from suppliers has some tremendously valuable insights into things like your corporate spending, your cash flow, even into the health of your vendors in some cases. And if we could get at that data, well, now we can not only process our transactions more efficiently, now we can turn AP into an information hub. We can serve that information up to the business in a more timely, more complete manner. We can put it in context, and we can do it in a way that an ERP or accounting software package on its own could never do, because AP will have access to data from the moment it shows up on our doorstep. And then we could put it together with information that resides in an ERP and other systems. And now we have a 360-degree visibility into things. And once we do that, now we're cooking. Now we're able to provide data to senior management that can help them navigate economic turbulence. And one big way you can do that is through leveraging AP to improve cash flow and cost control. And this is really the headline these days when the business world in general, but in AP, this really should be our North Star. Things like early payment insights can help us better forecast where our cash is. We can make better decisions about when we should accept early payment discount offers, and we can also get better visibility into where we stand with our accruals, not as a back end process, but at any point in time. What's more, when we automate our AP process, now we're able to capture more discounts more dynamically. Additionally, we're able to optimize our payment terms to suppliers. In many AP departments, we don't think a whole lot about payment terms. In fact, 40% of all of you don't even track payment terms. That's a mistake. It's a missed opportunity because when you combine invoice automation with payment automation, then we can start to use payment terms as a lever to drive some behaviors among our suppliers. So we could tell the supplier, hey, if you're willing to accept a virtual card payment, I'll pay you tomorrow. If you're willing to take a ACH payment from me, maybe we could pay you in 30 days. If you insist on getting a check from us, we'll pay you in 45 or 60 or 90 days. And what happens is now we can start using AP as a lever to improve our days payable outstanding. What that does is it helps improve your company's working capital. When you don't track payment terms, when you pay suppliers as soon as an invoice is approved and you do it before your payment due date, what that does is it basically gives your vendors a cost-free loan. What's more, through the data that you get from AP automation, now you're able to improve your budget planning, and that, of course, helps you improve your cash flow and your cost controls. AP automation also helps you strengthen supplier relationships. Now, once we start paying suppliers on time and accurately, well, that fosters trust. And when it's time to renegotiate those contract terms with them, you're going to be the company they're more likely to provide most favorable nation pricing to. Maybe they'll give you more advantageous service level agreements. Maybe they'll want to cooperate with you or collaborate with you on innovation. What's more, AP automation reduces those disputes that really frustrate suppliers. Nothing makes a supplier angrier than being paid incorrectly. That back and forth emails and phone calls I was talking about earlier, oftentimes they're in that loop. They've got better things to do than to make up for deficiencies in your AP process. What's more, when you have stronger supplier relationships through AP automation, you have the peace of mind that your supplier will more than likely be there when supply chain disruptions occur. So you can have some confidence that despite shifting global trade policy, you've got a ready-made supplier base. AP automation also helps us be more agile as an organization when things are pretty turbulent. Faster invoice approvals mean faster decisions. We'll know more quickly where things stand with our cash. Clear workflows and real time dashboards allow us to instantly see potential gaps in our cash flow and maybe even some areas where spending is out of whack. And so we could take proactive action to fix things. Many cases, when we have an environment with economic turbulence, you'll read in the paper that such and such business mandated that all departments cut expenses by 5% across the board. And you think to yourself, well, why would they do that? Some of those departments are really firing on all cylinders. They're doing great. They're growing. The reason is because they simply don't know where the money is being spent. They don't have that real-time visibility. What's more, when you're in an automated environment, AP can help the organization adapt instead of react. So when you think back to the market turmoil that was caused by the tariff discussions, now the business can quickly see exactly where spending and cash flows are. And so you're not being caught flat footed. And that brings us to our third poll question, which is now displayed on your screen. This time we want to know which of the following is the least efficient part of your accounts payable process. Which of the following is the least efficient part of your accounts payable process? Is it the way you capture invoices? Is it the way you capture invoice data, the header or line item information? Is it the way you route invoices for approval when they don't match to POs or delivery receipts or when they warrant approval? Is it the way that you resolve exceptions? Or is it the way that you post approved invoices to your accounting software or ERP? Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen, and we'll discuss the results in just a moment. And really, one of the other key things to think about when you're thinking about automation is what this poll question gets at. Is it's not just about fixing one part of your AP process. It's about trying to align the entire invoice to pay process to be electronic and touch free. Let's see how our attendees responded to our poll question. We asked you which of the following is the least efficient part of your AP process. I can't say I'm surprised. I didn't want to put my thumb on the scale, but this is what I would have predicted. Half of you said the way you resolve exceptions is the least efficient part of your process, probably the most pain level, right? 25% of you said the way you route invoices for approval. If you're not doing it digitally with a rules-based program, you're really at the mercy of emails, right? And the reality is emails simply weren't built for invoice processing. They weren't built for financial functions in general, but certainly weren't built for email processing. They aren't secure. They don't provide segregation of duties. They don't provide systematic workflows. There's no audit logging. There's no data retention, and there's oftentimes no data encryption. 17% of you said the way you capture invoices is the least efficient part of your process, and some of you identified invoice data capture as being inefficient. So no matter what it is the most inefficient part of your process, the key is to find a way to think holistically about automation to strive toward that full automation. Question is how do we go about doing that? I'm glad you asked. Well, the starting point for most organizations, no matter where you are, whether you're paper-based or maybe even if you've taken some baby steps toward automation, is to begin with those high volume rules-based processes like invoice routing. Wait, you're thinking to yourself, Mark, come on here. What are you suggesting? You want us to go look for low-hanging fruit? You want us to go for the cupcakes? Shouldn't we go for the complex stuff? No. Take a lesson from the SEC football teams. Every year, at the beginning of the year, the SEC schedules a bunch of cupcakes on their schedule. They're powerhouses and they crush them. They grind them right into the turf. Why do they do that, you might be wondering? Well, they do it because they want to test out some things. They want to prove some concepts. They want to rack up an easy win so they can crow to their fans and their administration. That's what we need to do in AP as well. We want to go look for the 80% of our transactions that we can automate, take out, and eliminate as much of that manual repetitive work as possible. And to go find that 80%, well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go talk to your users, your frontline users. There's a temptation in AP automation to say, well, I'm not going to talk to my frontline users until I absolutely have to, because I don't want to scare them unnecessarily. I don't want them heading for the door thinking their job's at risk. It's the complete wrong approach. In many cases, organizations that do this end up with an ill-fitting solution, one that simply isn't up to the needs. And that's because the manager might not have known everything that goes into the AP process at their organization. So, what I want you to do is gather up your frontline staff, explain to them that you're thinking about automation and put it in terms that benefit them. Hey, Mildred, this is going to free you up from all that data keying that you hate doing. Hey, Linda, you know what a hassle it is trying to figure out who the approver on an invoice is and then nag them to give you approvals? We're going to automate that process so you don't have to deal with that hassle. I want you to understand from them what the workflows are. Chart every single one of them. In the old days, when we were all in the office, I used to tell folks to go down to the local office supply store and get one of those giant brown paper rolls of paper. You've seen them. They weigh like 50 pounds, and lay it out on the boardroom table or the meeting room table and get the smelliest, most toxic markers you can find in the market. And then start drawing all your workflows. Who are the stakeholders? Who touches everything? Why are they doing this? And if you do this, whether you do it on brown craft paper with toxic markers or whether you do it electronically, what this is going to do is it's going to uncover inefficiencies in your process. You're going to see gaps. You're going to see all those manual tasks laid to bear. And you're going to start to wonder, well, why does this person need to do this task? And that's going to help you be able to identify what you should be doing and not doing. When you're thinking about automation, you also need to think about your legacy systems. So one of the other things you need to do early on is take inventory of all the finance systems that an AP system might need to integrate with. These are the table stakes, folks. Do not buy an AP automation system that does not integrate with whatever ERP, accounting software, or other finance systems you're using. You're just wasting your time rekeying and doing swivel chair accounting. That's not going to get you anywhere. And I also want you to start small, prove your success, and expand to additional workflows. So you're going to identify those high volume tasks. Maybe take those out for, say, a certain set of suppliers, or maybe for a certain business unit. This is the task we're gonna eliminate. Just make sure the technology works, make sure everyone understands how the process goes, make any adjustments necessary, and then roll it out. I know you're going to want to do the big bang approach, right? Prove to the boss how smart you were by automating, but you want to test, adjust, and then expand. I also want you to look for ways to implement artificial intelligence in your department. AI can be a great assistant to your teams. It can be that conduit for eliminating those things they don't like about their staff. The number one thing that AP practitioners would like to eliminate from their day to day activities is what? Manual data entry. That's according to my friends at the Institute of Finance and Management. And nothing is better at capturing invoice header and line item data than artificial intelligence. It can classify invoices, extract that data with a high degree of accuracy. It can detect anomalies in that data that will immediately flag them as being a misread information or maybe a mismatch. It can validate those invoices against POs and proof of delivery documents that are residing in our accounting software, ERP. And in many cases, it can post them directly without anyone having to lift a finger. What's more, machine learning applies computer logic. So when it sees how you correct something in a transaction, it understands that. And the next time it sees that same transaction, it won't make that mistake again. What's more is it can start to gather all this data about our AP process to uncover trends and patterns that us humans would never be able to come up with unless we poured over data. And in many cases, it could do it over data sets that we could never ever imagine as a human. The next step is to look for ways to apply AI into your department. Capture and extraction, as I said, this is a no-brainer. AI is ideal for data capture, unlike anything we've seen with optical character recognition in the past. The reason AI is so much better than OCR for data capture is that it puts things into context. You know, when those fields, when OCR struggled to know whether a field was really an amount or a supplier number, or maybe somebody put a symbol into a field and that threw everything off. AI can figure that out. What's more, when suppliers inevitably change their invoices, AI will be able to adapt without us having to change any templates or anything like that. AI is also ideal for routing and exceptions resolution. It can apply the logic that we give it, say an HR hierarchy of who our teams are in different departments, and be able to use that to determine how to route invoices for approval. And as I said, it can detect anomalies and do reporting that we would usually have to pour over manually. Next, I want you to think about the right technology. Look for configurable, user friendly platforms. If no one's going to adopt the technology or they're going to begrudgingly use it, you'll never get ROI. So make sure, here again, when you're involving your frontline staff, have them in the demos and make sure that they think it's something that they'd use. Next, I want you to ensure scalability and integration with your current platforms. So you want to make sure that the platform can adapt to your changing business needs. One trapdoor in many product demos is workflow. Every vendor will tell you they have configurable workflows to handle every scenario. What they don't tell you is they hard code many of those workflows. So when a vendor is giving you a demo, I want you to ask, so how would you handle my workflow? Can you show me that? Here's some rules, and see how they can be able to adapt those workflows for your needs. Never take their word for it. Always make sure that you don't buy a solution till you see your business rules applied in that software. What's more, I want you to prioritize technology providers that have AP specific expertise. There's lots and lots of fly-by-night solutions providers out there these days. AI has made it easy for fintechs to be able to create AP automation solutions. For goodness sake, work with one that has a track record in accounts payable. Do they speak your lingo? Do they know a PO from an invoice, from a shipping document? Do they understand hierarchies and workflows and escalation procedures? What's more, I also want you to make sure that you're thinking in terms of what does this technology do to AP's role in the organization as we start to evolve our technology? So I want you to start with aligning your department with the business's priorities. Too often we were in the back room, right? Or the basement, as my earlier analogy said. I want you to say, hey, we are going to be your partner, Mr. or Mrs. CFO, and help you achieve your objectives. So, how do you do that? You make sure that your metrics that you're tracking are aligned with what it is the CFO or the controller or the finance director thinks is most important. Things like savings and visibility and risk mitigation. I want you to speak the language of finance leaders, not just someone who's running an AP operation. So, in other words, I want you to make sure that your business case for AP automation speaks directly to those things you know a CFO cares about. And before you ever create that proposal, make sure you find out what it is he or she cares about. I want you to highlight data that shows how AP is going to do this. So leverage vendors like MHC to provide you with benchmark information on how their other customers were able to achieve improvements in things like risk mitigation. And finally, I want you to position AP as a partner to all of this. So you're going to become this information hub, right? By unlocking this information, make sure you are putting it in context, making it usable, not just throwing a spreadsheet over the fence. And that brings us to our next point, which is I want you to share data. So there's powerful graphical dashboards within these AP automation solutions. They can instantly show you key performance indicators. They can show you the status of invoices. That information is a treasure trove for a CFO or a controller. Find ways to serve that up to them. Maybe if it's even read only access to, say, that dashboard, you want to find ways to get that information into their hands. So when they're sitting down with their morning cup of coffee, maybe they can instantly know where things stand with accruals. I want you to start reporting on the amount of early pay discounts that you're capturing in your departments. How many exceptions are you reducing? How much faster are your cycle times? And how much cash back are you earning on virtual card payments? These types of things that we take for granted in AP are the sort of thing that a CFO can monetize. They'll instantly think of how much that means to the business's bottom line and start transforming AP into a profit center rather than that cost center. And finally, never stop showing leadership how you are contributing to the business's success. Have periodic check-ins with the CFO or the controller or finance director. Show them how it is that you're striving to improve the strategic standing of the department and the types of things that you're contributing. One other thing you're going to do as part of this is you're going to start to build out cross-functional partnerships. We can be an island in AP. I get it. Procurement, they're difficult to deal with in many cases. But I want you to take the opposite approach. Become insufferably nice to these folks. I want you to reach out to them right after this webinar and start building relationships with procurement and IT and treasury and compliance and find out what they think of your current AP processes. It might be hard to listen to at first, but over time, I want you to start building a relationship with them. Involve them in the search for an AP automation solution, and then use their objectives for AP as part of your objectives. One of the great things AP automation does for these types of stakeholders is provide a unified view of spending and cash flow. This is the type of stuff that they're looking for. And in many cases, they're leaning on IT to build out custom reports and an ERP to provide. Well, an AP automation solution can offer that up in real time. What's more, I want you to use this team to help strengthen your case for automation. If Treasury tells you, man, I wish we could find ways to optimize our payments to suppliers, I wish we could capture more early payment discounts. If a controller tells you, wow, I'm really concerned about payment fraud, for goodness sake, make sure your business case for AP automation reflects those types of things. And then I want you to invest in your team. And this is a tricky one, right? This requires some real work. The fact is change is hard for many people, and it can be scary for certain people. I want you to plan upfront on how to upskill your team in the new environment that they're going to be operating in. So an automated environment for someone who spent their life being a 10 key operator, well, now we've got to show them how to use a mouse and how to use an analytics dashboard. The goal is to move our AP staff from being data entry clerks to being data analysts. And to do that, we're going to have to provide them some training. We're going to have to tailor the training to different segments of our staff. Some will be further along in their use of automation than others. Some will have a more worldview of how this all hangs together. Whatever it is, we need to do an assessment of where everyone stands and then build out a plan for getting everybody on a level playing field. We might need to involve HR here. So make sure you have a conversation early on with your HR teams about the types of roles you're advertising for and what skills you'll need and what resources they have to support you. What's more, I want you to start involving AP staff in other projects. So now that we're going to start freeing up their time from just keying invoice data, now they'll have time to actually do some data analysis, to create some reports, to collaborate with those people down in procurement. And most importantly, celebrate and communicate their expanded impact. We want to make sure we boost morale in our team, and we want to make sure we're recognizing their progress. And that brings us to our final poll question, which is now displayed on your screen. This time we want to know, where is your organization in its AP transformation journey? Where is your organization in its AP transformation journey? Are you just getting started? Are you in the planning stage? Are you in progress? Are you mostly complete? Or do you have no plans for automation now? Where are you in your AP automation journey? Let's see, Haley, how everyone responded to our poll question. We asked you, where are you in your AP automation journey? Uh, this is pretty split, isn't it? 33% of you said you're in progress. You've taken steps. 22% of you are in the planning stages. Another 22% of you just getting started. Another 22% of you say you have no plans to automate now. One of the reasons you might not have plans to automate is you might be wondering, how do I get going? Well, I want you to start by assessing your current state. Do a lay of the land, understand where those gaps are in your processes, inefficiencies, those manual processes that are holding your team back. You're going to map your processes end to end, identify those pain points and bottlenecks, and talk to your frontline staff as well as other stakeholders to see where they think the issues lie. Once you understand where those pain points are, now you're going to set out the goals. What is it we're trying to achieve? Are we going to automate our entire process, just part of it? Are we really trying to improve spending, spend management? Are we trying to reduce our costs? Are we trying to accelerate our cycle times? And we want to set some goals. So we don't want to make this airy fairy. Baseline where we currently stand. How long does it currently take you to process an invoice? How many exceptions do you typically have? What's the cost to process an invoice? And then set some realistic key performance indicators. And then prioritize those quick wins that I talked about and build momentum. Plow through the rest of your football schedule, so to speak. And then I want you to automate the essentials. You must automate invoice capture, routing, and approvals. We've got to find ways to eliminate all those manual repetitive tasks. And this is a pile of them right there. Use AI whenever possible to take those manual tasks off your plate. Set up alerts and notifications to keep your approvals moving. In other cases, you could use escalation procedures to automatically reroute invoices if somebody doesn't take action fast enough. You want to make sure you have controls built into your invoice to pay solution so that you can ensure compliance, accountability, and of course, security. And you want to make sure that whatever solution you choose integrates with your accounting system or ERP. As you go along, I want you to use dashboards to track your progress. Look for those gaps, those areas where you need to refocus, make adjustments, and then you want to keep wringing out as many manual processes as possible. And importantly, keep scaling, keep growing your AP automation initiatives. Fifth, I want you to be on the lookout for some common pitfalls. The most common is trying to do everything at once. The Big Bang was a great TV show, but it's not as good of an AP automation strategy. Look for that low hanging fruit. The 80/20 rule works perfectly here. Don't ignore input from frontline users. Make sure you involve them early. They'll be able to tell you where they believe the issues are and help you identify those systems that they think will help address them. I want you to make sure that you don't focus just on technology. Think about your processes. Many organizations digitize broken workflows. Yeah. So they've digitized something that's inefficient. I also want you to make sure you never underestimate the importance of change management. Our people are our most valuable asset. We need to make sure that we bring them along. And finally, you want to make sure that you have metrics and accountability for what you're doing. So, what's the message we want to leave you with today? Manual accounts payable is no longer sustainable. It simply can't keep up with today's challenges in the business world. AP can and should be a strategic lever for organizations. Help us navigate the economy, no matter whether it's good or bad. And automation can be a real catalyst for change. It can transform your AP function from a tactical back office function, a drain on resources, a cost of doing business, into a strategic powerhouse that elevates your career, your department, and your business. But the key is we're going to need to empower our team. With the right technology and the right skills in our team, we have the ability to transform AP. That's what I had to say today. Now, for
Yes.
a little bit more about MHC North Star.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. That was a really valuable session today. And yeah, I just have a few closing remarks for everyone. So, as we mentioned, you'll receive an email with the link to the recording if you'd like to revisit this content. And if you found this topic interesting and you'd like to learn more about MHC North Star and how we can help with a lot of the things that Mark mentioned today, please visit our website, fill out the contact form, and then someone from MHC will follow up with you. Next slide, please, Mark. Thank you. I also wanted to quickly mention, if you're already an MHC customer, you can earn a $50 gift card this month for sharing your experience on G2. You can just visit g2.com, search for MHC, and leave a review to earn this promotion. And if you go to the next slide, please. And we also have 2 more webinars this month, so if you enjoyed this one, we'd love to have you join us on June 24th and or June 25th. So you can visit our website and sign up under the resources tab. We'd love to have you. Thank you all so much for attending and have a great rest of your day.